Welcome back to the deep dive. I want to start today by taking you to a place that I think is going to feel uncomfortably familiar.
Chuckles. Okay, I'm braced.
Picture this. You are in a conference room. The air conditioning is humming, maybe a little too loud. You're sitting there, and across the table is a client or, a colleague from an international branch, maybe just someone you really want to impress.
The stakes are high.
The stakes are high. And for the last 6 months, or maybe it's been 6 years, you have been learning English. You've got the apps on your phone, you've got the streak going, you've got the textbooks on your shelf.
I'll get to it this weekend stack. The aspirational stack.
Exactly. The spine is unbroken, maybe, but they are there. But you feel like you've put in the time. And then the person across the table asks you a question. A relatively simple question, and you know the answer. In your head, in your native language, you are eloquent, you are witty, you are intelligent, but you open your mouth to speak English, and nothing. It's like the gears just grind to a halt. You stumble, you freeze, you grasp for a word that was right there 5 minutes ago, but now it's gone.
It evaporated.
You start to sweat, you mutter something that sounds like a toddler's grammar. And the moment passes. You see that little flicker of confusion in their eyes, and you just want to crawl under the table.
It is a visceral nightmare.
Mm.
And it's the universal experience of the language plateau. It's that gap between what you know you are capable of thinking and what you are actually capable of saying.
It feels like a betrayal by your own brain.
A total betrayal.
It really does. And the worst part is the story we tell ourselves right after that meeting. We walk out and we think, I'm just not good at this.
Yeah, that's the immediate conclusion.
We tell ourselves, I don't have the ear for it, or I'm too old, or my favorite, I don't have the language gene. We treat fluency like it's this magical talent, like being double-jointed or having perfect pitch. You either have it or you don't.
And that narrative, the language gene myth, is honestly the biggest barrier to fluency. It's more dangerous than difficult grammar or, weird pronunciation.
How so?
Because once you believe it's a talent you lack, you give yourself permission to stop trying.
Yeah.
It's an out. But the reality is that fluency isn't an art form. It's not magic. It is a biological, cognitive, and mechanical process.
And that is the hook for today. What if the problem isn't you? What if the problem is that you've been trying to build a house with, a screwdriver? What if the issue isn't a lack of talent, but a lack of science?
That is exactly what we are unpacking. We're looking at a transcript from the English podcast titled 10 Research-Proven Techniques to Speak English Fluently.
Right.
But we aren't just reading a listicle here. We're doing a forensic analysis of why the brain learns the way it does. We're looking at the neurobiology of memory, the psychology of practice, the whole shebang.
We're bringing in the heavy hitters. We've got linguists, cognitive psychologists, neuroscientists. We're going to talk about Stephen Krashen, Anders Ericsson, Hermann Ebbinghaus.
These aren't just random YouTubers giving their hot takes.
No, these are the people who literally mapped the human mind.
Exactly. The mission today is to take you from studying English, which is passive, academic, and let's be honest, often boring to acquiring English, which is active, biological, and just way more effective.
And by the end of this hour, we want you to have a customized stack of 10 techniques that fit together into a coherent system.
Not just a random pile of tips, a system.
So if you're tired of hitting that wall, stick around. We are about to dismantle the wall brick by brick. Let's start at the very beginning. The foundation.
Where it all begins.
Before you can speak, before you can impress that client, you have to actually remember the words. And honestly, my memory is like a sieve. I learn a word on Tuesday, and by Friday, it's not just gone. It's like it never even existed.
You are definitely not alone in that. In fact, what you're describing is a biological inevitability. And this brings us to our first major concept and the first technique, the forgetting curve and spaced repetition. This goes back to the late 19th century. A German psychologist named Hermann Ebbinghaus. He was obsessed with memory. I mean, truly obsessed.
What did he do?
He basically ran experiments on himself, memorizing lists of nonsense syllables, words like zoff or wug, that had no meaning, so he couldn't cheat by associating them with things he already knew, and then he tested how long he could keep them in his head.
That sounds like a miserable existence, just memorizing nonsense words all day.
It was probably incredibly tedious, but the data he got from it changed everything we know about learning. He plotted the results on a graph, and it became known as the forgetting curve. And the curve is Well, it's brutal.
How brutal are we talking?
It shows that when you learn something new, if you make absolutely no effort to retain it, you forget about 50% of it within 24 hours.
Wait, hold on. 50%. So if I spend an hour studying vocabulary tonight, half of that effort is literally evaporated by tomorrow night. That can't be right.
Roughly, yes. It's that dramatic. And it gets worse. By day 2 or 3, you're down to retaining maybe 20 or 30%. Within a week, you're often back to near zero.
That is so depressing.
It is. And it explains why cramming for a test feels effective in the moment, because the info is still in your short-term buffer. But 2 weeks later, you'd fail the same test.
You're just pouring water into a bucket that has a massive hole in the bottom.
A huge hole. It just drains right out.
So it makes you feel like, why even bother? If my brain is just going to delete the files, why am I doing the work?
Because the brain is efficient, maybe too efficient. It deletes what it deems unimportant. If you see a piece of information once, your brain goes, probably random noise, not relevant, delete.
So I have to convince my brain it's important.
You have to tag the file as important, do not delete. And the only way to do that is to revisit it. But, and this is the absolute key, you have to revisit it at very specific times. This is technique number 1, spaced repetition.
Okay, so how does this fix the hole in the bucket?
Think of a memory like a path in the woods. The first time you walk it, you just trample down some grass. It's a very faint trail.
Right.
If you don't walk it again, the grass grows back within days.
Yeah.
The trail just vanishes. That's the forgetting curve in action. Now, spaced repetition is the strategy of walking that trail right before the grass grows back completely.
So the timing is everything.
Everything. If you review the word 5 minutes after learning it, it's too easy, the trail is still perfectly clear, your brain doesn't do any work to find it.
No effort.
No effort.
Yeah.
But if you wait until the moment you are just about to forget it, say 1 day later, and you force your brain to find that faint trail again, the brain has to struggle. That struggle tramples the grass down harder. It widens the path.
So by struggling to remember, I'm basically signaling to my brain, hey, this one, I actually need this one.
Exactly. You're upgrading its importance. And the magic is in the expanding intervals. You review it after 1 day. If you get it right, the algorithm or your schedule pushes the next review out to 3 days. Get it right again, maybe 1 week, then 2 weeks, then a month. You are essentially stretching the forgetting time further and further out until that path becomes a permanent road. It enters long-term memory.
Okay, practically speaking, though, I am not going to carry around a spreadsheet or a notebook and log the date and time I learned the word ubiquitous and then calculate the next optimal review date. I mean, that sounds like a full-time job. Who actually does that?
Well, back in the 1970s, people did use these physical Lightner boxes with index cards. It was a whole manual system.
Wow.
But today, nobody should be doing this manually. We have algorithms for this. This is where apps like Anki or Quizlet come in. They have this spaced repetition system, or SRS, built right into the code.
So the app does the scheduling for me.
The app knows you studied the card today. It knows you got it right. It calculates the optimal decay rate and says, okay, I'll show this to him again in 4 days. You just open the app, and it serves you exactly the words you are in danger of forgetting at that very moment.
So it's like having a personal trainer for your memory who knows exactly when your muscles are ready for the next rep.
That's a perfect analogy. It's all about optimizing efficiency.
Yeah.
You aren't wasting time reviewing words you already know perfectly, and you aren't waiting too long and letting the hard ones disappear. You are always operating on the edge of forgetting.
But there's a catch, right? It's not just when you review, it's how. I remember in college, reviewing meant, looking at my highlighted notes, reading them over, nodding my head, and feeling smart. Yep, I know that. Yep, I know that.
Ah, the fluency illusion.
Yeah.
Yes. When you just look at the answer, say the Spanish word and the English translation side by side, your brain recognizes the visual pattern. It says, oh, I recognize this. But recognition is not recall.
So what's the difference?
It's huge. And this brings us to technique number 7, retrieval practice, or what scientists call the testing effect.
The testing effect sounds like something I want to avoid. I hate tests.
Everybody hates tests because they are hard. But that hardness, that difficulty is the entire point. A mountain of research shows that testing yourself, forcing yourself to retrieve information without looking, is significantly more powerful for memory than rereading or restudying.
Why, though? What is happening biologically when I test myself versus when I just passively read something?
Let's go back to our path in the woods. Passive review, just reading your notes, is like looking at a map of the woods. You see the trail on the paper. Oh, yeah, I see where it goes. It's easy. Active retrieval, or testing, is actually walking into the woods without the map, and forcing yourself to find the way. It requires cognitive strain, real effort. That strain releases neurochemicals that strengthen the synaptic connections. The path gets deeper.
So I have to let myself struggle. I have to be okay with that uncomfortable feeling of not knowing.
You have to embrace it. It's a concept called desirable difficulty. If it feels easy, you probably aren't learning much. If you were sitting there, eyes closed, sweating, trying to remember if the word is perceive or receive, that moment of struggle is where the learning happens, even if you fail.
Wait, failing helps. If I get it wrong, how does that possibly help me learn?
This is one of the most fascinating points in the source material. It says that a failed retrieval attempt actually primes the brain for learning.
Primes it how?
If you try to dig that memory out and you can't, you have effectively dug a hole in your mind. You've created a need. You've created a question mark. Then when you flip the card over and see the answer, your brain rushes to fill that hole.
Yeah.
The information sticks so much better than if you just looked at the answer immediately.
So to synthesize these first two techniques then, we use spaced repetition, like the apps or a schedule, to determine when we study.
Right.
And we use retrieval practice, which is basically testing ourselves and not just reading, to determine how we study.
Precisely. You are building a system that traps memories before they can escape. It's a 1-2 punch against forgetting.
Okay, so we've turned the leaky bucket into a steel trap. We aren't forgetting things anymore, but now we have to talk about what we put into the bucket in the first place.
Yes, the quality of the input.
Because for years, my strategy was just consume everything, watch movies, listen to music, change my phone language to English. But I still felt completely stuck. The source calls this the art of input.
And this brings us to the grandfather of modern language acquisition theory, a man named Stephen Krashen. You cannot have this conversation without talking about Krashen. His big idea was comprehensible input. This is technique number 2.
Comprehensible seems like the key word there, because I've definitely tried watching the news in French and just, completely zoned out because it sounded like noise.
That's the exact trap. Krashen has this little formula he calls I+1.
I+1, okay.
The I is your current level, what you can already understand perfectly. The 1 is something just slightly above your level, a little bit of new vocabulary, maybe a slightly more complex grammar structure, but it's all deeply rooted in a context you can already understand.
So if I'm at level I and I try to watch a PhD lecture on quantum physics in English, that's not I+1, that's like I+100.
Exactly. And I+100 is useless. It's just noise. Your brain can't process it. It filters it out because it can't find any hooks to hang the new information on. On the flip side, if you watch a children's show that you understand 100% of, that's I+0.
Which feels good, but you're not growing.
It's good for confidence, but you aren't acquiring anything new. You need to be in that Goldilocks zone, not too hard, not too easy.
This source gives a specific metric for this, 80 to 90% comprehension. That feels really high. I always thought if I understood 90% of something, I was wasting my time.
Not at all. That 10% gap is where the magic happens. Because you understand the story, you understand the context. Your brain can unconsciously infer the meaning of the unknown words. You don't have to stop and look them up. You guess them. And that process of inferring meaning from context is what Krashen calls acquisition.
Okay, you've mentioned this distinction a couple of times now. Acquisition versus learning. I feel like this is a big deal. Break it down for me.
It is the central thesis of Krashen's entire body of work. Learning is what most of us did in school. It is a conscious academic process.
Like grammar drills.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Here is the rule for the past perfect tense. Memorize it and take this quiz.
You end up knowing a lot about the language.
Right. I can explain the rule perfectly, but I can't use it in a normal sentence to save my life.
Exactly. Acquisition, on the other hand, is subconscious. It's what happens to you when you are a baby. You don't study grammar rules. You just listen. You absorb. You get a feel for what sounds right.
You just know it. When you speak your native language, you don't think, okay, subject plus verb plus object. You just speak. That is acquired competence. Comprehensible input is designed to bypass the clunky learning system and feed the acquisition system directly.
So we need to find content that hits that 90% understanding mark. That explains why watching something like Friends or The Big Bang Theory is actually terrible advice for beginners.
It is terrible advice. Think about it. Friends is full of slang, cultural references from the 90s, sarcasm, and rapid-fire overlapping dialogue. For a beginner, that is I+20. It's overwhelming. You get discouraged and you quit.
So what's the alternative?
You need to swallow your pride and watch things that are simpler. Graded readers, slow news reports, and yes, even cartoons like Peppa Pig.
Peppa Pig, the secret weapon of polyglots. I've heard this before.
It's genius. The sentences are simple, the visuals match the words perfectly, the structures are repetitive. It is pure I+1 for a beginner.
Okay, so we're consuming the right stuff. But the source suggests we can supercharge how our brain processes this input by engaging more of our senses. This is technique number 8, multimodal learning.
This is all about redundancy. Your brain isn't just one big hard drive. It has different regions for processing visual data, auditory data, motor data, and so on.
Right.
If you only read a word, you are only creating a pathway in the visual cortex. It's like a single tiny road to that destination in your mind. If a road gets blocked, you forget. You're stuck.
So multimodal learning is like building a whole highway system to the same memory.
That's a great way to put it. You want a visual road, an auditory road, and a kinetic road, all leading to the same place. The source uses the example of the word jubilant.
I love this example. Let's walk through it. I want to learn jubilant. What do I do?
Okay. Step 1, you read the word and its definition. That's your visual input.
Got it.
Step 2, you find a recording of the pronunciation online and listen to it. Jubilant. That's your auditory input.
Okay, now I know how it sounds.
Step 3, you say the word out loud 5 times. Jubilant. Jubilant. Now you are engaging the motor cortex and the actual muscles in your jaw and tongue.
So I'm feeling it.
You're feeling it. Step 4, you write a sentence with it by hand. More motor skills connecting the brain to the hand. Step 5, and this is the kicker, you look at a picture of someone who looks jubilant. Maybe a soccer player sliding on his knees after scoring the winning goal. Pure joy.
So now when I need to recall that word in a conversation, if I can't remember the sound of it, maybe that image of the soccer player will pop into my head.
Right. Or the feeling of writing it. You have anchored the concept in multiple sensory domains. It makes the memory infinitely more durable and easier to find.
It sounds like a lot of work for one word, but I guess you don't do this for cat or dog. You do this for the really sticky stuff.
Exactly. Use it for the high-value words, the concepts that just refuse to stick. It's a targeted tool.
Okay, we have arrived at what is, for me, the most painful part of the episode. Segment 3. Because so far, everything sounds nice and comfortable. I'm testing myself in private. I'm watching Peppa Pig in private.
Right. Low risk.
But now we have to talk about the gap, the chasm. The fact that I can listen to English all day long and understand it pretty well, but I still can't speak.
The input trap. This is a very, very common phenomenon. For years, educators thought input was enough. Just pour the language in, and eventually it will spill out of the mouth.
Then it doesn't.
Not automatically. Research by a linguist named Merrill Swain really changed our understanding of this. She looked at French immersion students in Canada. These kids heard French all day, every day at school. Their comprehension was near native.
So it was working.
To a point. But when they spoke, their grammar was messy. They made basic errors that a native speaker never would.
Why? If they hear the correct grammar all day, every day, why don't they use it?
Because understanding and producing are two completely different cognitive processes. When you listen, when you take in input, you can cheat. You can gloss over the little words, the grammar. If I say, yesterday I go to store buy apple, you understand me perfectly. You get the gist.
Right. My brain fills in the gaps.
Your brain doesn't need to process the error. But if I ask you to say that sentence...
Yeah. I have to make choices. Yesterday I went, go to the store, to buy an apple. You can't gloss over the details when you're the one building the sentence.
You have to commit to a specific syntax. And that pressure is what Swain called the output hypothesis. You have to produce language to truly learn language.
The source also talks about the noticing hypothesis here. I feel like this is that moment where you freeze that I described at the beginning.
Yes, but that moment of freezing is actually a good thing. It's the noticing gap. When you try to speak and you realize, oh crap, I don't know the preposition that goes with this verb, you have just identified a specific hole in your knowledge.
So the failure is data.
The failure is crucial data. The next time you're listening to a podcast or watching a show and you hear that phrase used correctly, your brain will light up. It's like a little alarm goes off. That's the preposition. You only notice it because you tried to use it and failed.
So output primes the brain to learn more effectively from future input.
They work in a cycle, a feedback loop. Input feeds output. Output highlights the gaps for the next round of input to fill.
So we need to speak. But speaking is scary. You need a partner, you need a teacher. You need to be willing to feel like an idiot.
You actually don't need a partner, especially at first. The source is very specific about technique number 3, output practice. It suggests 20 to 30 minutes a day, and it really emphasizes solo methods.
Just talking to yourself.
Talking to yourself, narrating your day as you do it.
Okay, I am making coffee now. I am pouring the hot water over the grounds. Or recording audio diaries on your phone.
What's the point if no one is listening? The goal isn't communication. Not yet. The goal is construction. You are training your brain to assemble sentences quickly, to find the words, to build the grammar on the fly. You're building the machinery.
But there's another layer to this, right? Sometimes I know the sentence in my head, but my mouth just refuses to cooperate. I feel like I have marbles in my mouth. My tongue trips over the th sound or the R.
That is a physiological reality. Speaking is a motor skill. It's athletic. Your tongue, your lips, and your jaw are all muscles. If you've spent 30 years speaking Japanese or Spanish, your muscles have a specific muscle memory for making those sounds. English requires a completely different choreography.
So you're saying I need to take my mouth to the gym?
That is exactly what you need to do, and this is technique number 4, shadowing.
Shadowing is the gym.
It is the gym for your mouth.
Okay, walk me through this. Because when I first read about shadowing, I thought this sounds impossible and also kind of weird.
It is difficult, and it feels weird at first. Here is the protocol. You take a piece of audio, a podcast clip, a TED Talk, something with a transcript. You listen to it once, and then you play it again, and you speak along with the speaker.
At the same time.
At the very same time. But not like in school where you wait for them to finish a phrase and then you repeat it. You speak simultaneously.
Yeah.
You are a split second behind them, like a shadow.
So I'm basically talking over them.
Yes, it creates this chaotic feedback loop in your ears.
Yeah.
But what happens is because you are trying desperately to keep up, you stop thinking about grammar. You stop trying to translate from your native language.
You don't have time.
You have zero time to think. You are forced to mimic the speed, the rhythm, the intonation, the stress, the emotion of the speaker. You are downloading their prosody, the music of the language.
It feels a bit like singing along to a song you love.
Exactly. You know how you can sing a song in a foreign language perfectly, matching the rhythm and sound, even if you don't know what all the words mean? Shadowing taps into that same deep mimicry circuit in the brain. It bypasses the analytical part and trains the physical muscles directly.
But let's be real. If I walk down the street doing this, I'm going to look completely insane, muttering to myself, trailing a split second behind a podcast host.
You might look a little eccentric, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe do it in the car during your commute or in the shower. But the effectiveness is undeniable. The source recommends 15 to 20 minutes a day.
That's a lot.
It is, and a warning, it is physically and mentally exhausting. Start with 30-second clips. Do not try to shadow a whole hour-long episode on day one. You will hyperventilate and give up.
Okay, so we're getting the workout in. Now I want to shift to strategy. Because
Okay.
we're all busy. I don't have 4 hours a day to dedicate to this. I need to know that the time I do spend is actually working, that it's high leverage. This brings us to technique number 5, deliberate practice.
This comes from the work of Anders Ericsson. He's the guy behind the famous 10,000-hour rule that Malcolm Gladwell popularized.
Right.
But Ericsson actually hated how that rule was interpreted by the public.
Yeah, the idea that if I just do something for 10,000 hours, I'll magically become an expert.
Right. It's not true.
Yeah.
If you drive a car for 10,000 hours, are you a Formula One driver? No. You're just a guy who drives to work every day. Because you are doing naive practice. You are on autopilot. You aren't actively trying to get better. You're just doing the thing.
So what makes practice deliberate? What's the difference?
It has to be painful.
Yeah.
That's the short answer. The source lists 4 specific components. 1, you need a very specific goal. Not, I want to get better at English, but I want to master the pronunciation of the vowel sound in ship versus sheep.
Hyper-specific.
2, intense focus. No multitasking. Phone off. 3, immediate feedback. You need to know right away if you messed up. This could be from a teacher or from recording yourself and listening back. And 4, frequent discomfort. You have to be operating at the very edge of your ability, constantly making small mistakes.
It sounds like the complete opposite of all those fun language learning apps.
It is. It's not a game. It's a drill. It's the difference between playing a pickup game of soccer with your friends, which is fun, and doing cone drills for an hour by yourself, which is boring and hard, but actually makes you better.
You need a mix of both.
You need both, but deliberate practice is what breaks plateaus.
Now, there's one more optimization technique here that really threw me for a loop, because it goes against everything I've ever done in school my entire life. Technique number 6, interleaved practice.
This is a huge game changer. Most of us, when we study, we use blocking. We say, okay, this week is past tense week. We do 50 worksheets on the past tense, Monday, past tense, Tuesday, past tense.
And By Wednesday, I'm crushing it. I'm getting 100% on all the quizzes. I feel like a genius.
But are you actually learning?
Yeah.
Or have you just memorized the pattern of that specific worksheet? You know every answer is going to be a verb with aid. At the end, you stop thinking. You stop making decisions.
And then next week, when you try to speak in the real world, you fail.
You fail. Because in the real world, nobody tells you, hey, use the past tense now. You have to figure it out.
So what is interleaving?
Interleaving is mixing it up, randomizing your practice. Instead of doing 20 minutes of past tense, you do 5 minutes of past tense, then 5 minutes of prepositions, then 5 minutes of new vocabulary, then 5 minutes of pronunciation drills, and you mix them all together in the same quiz.
That sounds incredibly confusing. I would feel like I'm constantly disoriented and getting things wrong.
And that confusion is good. It's what scientists call contextual interference. By mixing the problems, your brain has to constantly identify what kind of problem this is before it can solve it. It has to ask, is this a past tense situation or a future tense situation or a preposition issue? That split second of decision-making is exactly what you do in a real conversation.
The source has a great tennis analogy for this.
Yes. Blocking is standing on the baseline and having the coach hit 50 forehands to you, one after another. By the 10th one, you're in a perfect groove. You don't have to move your feet. You look great.
Right.
Interleaving is the coach hitting a forehand, then a lob, then a drop shot, then a backhand, all in a random order. You were running around the court, sweating, missing balls. You look terrible. But who wins the match on Saturday?
The guy who practiced the random shots.
Exactly. Embracing the confusion in practice leads to mastery in performance.
I love that. Embrace the mess. Okay, moving on to segment 5. We've covered the work. Now let's talk about the biohacks. These are things that don't really look like studying, but they are absolutely crucial. And the first one is my favorite activity, sleep. Technique number 9.
We live in a culture that treats sleep as a weakness. You hear things like, I'll sleep when I'm dead. But if you're trying to learn a language, sleep is when the actual work happens.
The source calls it a biological reset, but it's more than that, right? It's like a file transfer.
That's a perfect way to describe it. When you learn something new during the day, say a list of vocabulary words, it is temporarily stored in a part of your brain called the hippocampus.
Okay.
Think of the hippocampus as a USB stick. It's fast, but it has very limited storage and it's fragile. If you don't save the data off of it, it gets overwritten the next day.
So where do you save it?
During sleep, specifically deep, slow-wave sleep, the brain replays the neural patterns of what you learn and transfers that data from the hippocampus to the neocortex.
The neocortex is the main hard drive.
The massive permanent hard drive. That whole process is called consolidation. If you cut your sleep short, you are literally interrupting the file transfer. You might have studied for 4 hours, but if you only sleep for 4 hours, you might only save 2 hours worth of work. The rest just lost.
That is terrifying. It reframes the whole idea of pulling an all-nighter to study.
It's the worst possible strategy. So the source mentions sleep-dependent learning. This doesn't mean you could just put the textbook under your pillow and absorb it.
Chuckles, I wish.
The tactic is strategic timing. Research suggests that studying your most difficult material right before bed is highly effective. The brain tends to prioritize the most recently acquired information for consolidation during sleep.
So I should tackle the complex grammar at 10 p.m., not 8 a.m.
Precisely. And don't underestimate naps. A 20-minute power nap can help clear the hippocampus and consolidate some memory. It's like clearing the cache on your browser so you can run faster for the rest of the day.
Finally, a study tip that involves napping. I'm in. Okay, let's talk about the last technique. This one is really interesting. Technique number 10, emotional connection and storytelling.
This is pure neuroscience. The hippocampus, which is the memory center, sits right next to the amygdala, the emotion center in the brain. They are physically linked, and they talk to each other all the time.
Which explains why I can remember exactly where I was and what I was wearing when I had my first breakup, but I have no idea what I had for lunch yesterday.
Exactly. Emotion acts as a highlighter pen for the brain. It tags experiences as important, save this. If you're just learning boring vocabulary lists off a page, your amygdala is asleep. The brain says, this is neutral, boring data, probably safe to dump it.
So how do we wake up the amygdala when we're learning the word for stapler? That's not a very emotional word.
You use something called the bizarreness effect. The source gives a great example. Let's say you need to learn 3 words: elephant, juggle, and nervous. Don't just repeat them in a list. Close your eyes and create a scene. Visualize a massive gray elephant. But he's sweating. He's trembling. He's extremely nervous. Why? Because he is on a unicycle, juggling 3 bright yellow bananas.
That is completely ridiculous.
It's absurd. It's funny. It might even be a little stressful for the elephant. And because it's weird and vivid, your amygdala lights up. You have created an emotional scene. You will remember the nervous elephant juggling 10 times longer than you will remember the list of words.
And what about the storytelling aspect of this?
Humans are narrative engines. We didn't evolve with textbooks. We evolved with stories around the campfire. The source notes that information embedded in a narrative is remembered 5 to 7 times better than just isolated facts.
Like, don't just write a single sentence with a new word.
No. Write a crazy story using 5 of your new vocabulary words. Make it funny, make it tragic, make it gross. It doesn't matter. Just make it a story.
Okay, we have covered a massive amount of ground. We've got the memory hacks, the input strategies, the output workouts, the optimization drills, and the biological boosters. But here's the problem. This feels overwhelming. If I try to do all 10 of these things tomorrow, I am going to have a breakdown.
You will burn out by lunchtime. And that is the biggest danger with any new system, trying to do too much too soon.
So the source provides a master plan, a way to weave this into a life that already includes a job and kids and chores. Let's break down the execution, how to actually do this.
The key is not to do everything all the time. You focus on what the source calls the core triad. 3 main pillars for your daily practice: comprehensible input, output practice, and shadowing.
Okay, those 3.
And the source suggests a 75-minute daily routine.
Now, 75 minutes still sounds like a lot to some people.
It is, but it's not a solid block of time. It's interleaved throughout your day in little pockets of time you probably already have.
Okay, let's walk through the sample day. Morning.
You wake up. While you are making coffee or eating your breakfast, 20 minutes of input. Listen to a podcast, watch a short YouTube video in English. But, and this is key, spend the last 5 minutes capturing vocabulary. Don't just listen passively. Notice the gaps. Write down the new words.
Okay. Midday, lunch break.
This is your spaced repetition time. You have your phone with you. Do 15 minutes of your Anki flashcards. It's quick, it's intense, and it keeps that memory bucket full.
Afternoon, the commute home, or maybe when you're at the gym.
This is your shadowing time. 20 minutes. You're in the car or you are walking the dog. Nobody can hear you. Put on the headphones and shadow a short clip. Get that physical workout in.
And the evening.
Time to wind down. 20 minutes. Journaling. Write a short story about your day. Try to use the new words you learned in the morning. This is your multimodal output practice.
Okay, when you break it down like that, 20 minutes here, 15 minutes there, it feels much more manageable. It's basically replacing doom scrolling time on social media with learning time.
Exactly. It's about integration, not addition. You're hijacking dead time.
But what about different levels? A beginner can't do the same routine as an advanced learner, can they?
The routine, the structure is the same. The content is what changes. The source is very clear on this.
Okay, let's do a quick lightning round on levels. Beginner, what's their content?
Input. Graded readers, children's books, Peppa Pig, simple stuff. Output. Focus on simple sentences in the present tense. I am happy. He is a doctor. Just the highest frequency words. Don't try to be Shakespeare.
Intermediate, the messy middle. This is where a lot of people get stuck.
Input. Young adult novels like Harry Potter are a classic for a reason. Also, TED Talks. They are scripted, spoken clearly, and almost always have accurate subtitles. Output. Start mixing tenses. Tell stories about your past and your plans for the future.
Advanced, the last mile, which can be the hardest.
Input. Native content, the news, complex documentaries, and especially comedy, which is the hardest thing to understand because it's so cultural. Output. Focus on nuance. Register how do I speak to my boss versus how I speak to my best friend. Idioms, slang, figurative language.
Now, the final piece of the puzzle, how do I know if any of this is actually working? Because the progress is so slow. You don't just wake up one day fluent. It's like watching grass grow.
You need objective metrics. You can't trust your feelings.
Yeah.
The source lists 5, but my favorite is the time speaking test.
How does that work?
Once a month, you record yourself speaking for exactly 2 minutes on the same simple topic. Describe your kitchen. Then you transcribe it and you count the words.
Okay.
If you spoke 100 words in January and 120 words in February, you are 20% faster. That is irrefutable data that you are improving.
I love that. It kills that little voice in your head that says, I'm not getting better.
It shuts it right down. You can also test vocabulary breadth with online tools, check your comprehension percentage, and analyze the complexity of your grammar. But the ultimate metric is the real-world benchmark.
Did I manage to order the coffee without panicking?
Did you order the coffee? Did you make that phone call you were dreading? Did you survive the meeting? Those small wins are the fuel that keeps you going.
We are in the home stretch now. We've given you the tools, the system, the metrics, but we have to warn you about the traps, the things that will kill your progress.
First and foremost, the ego trap. This is huge. People want to feel smart, so they choose material that is way too hard for them. They try to read the New York Times when they should be reading The Cat in the Hat.
And they get frustrated and quit.
Every time. You have to be humble enough to be a beginner.
Second trap, inconsistency.
The weekend warrior syndrome. I don't have time during the week, so I'll study for 5 hours on Sunday. No, the brain needs a daily drip feed. 20 minutes a day beats 5 hours on Sunday every single time. Neural pathways need constant reinforcement, not one massive flood.
And finally, passive consumption.
Thinking that having Netflix on in the background while you look at Instagram on your phone counts as studying, it doesn't. If you aren't actively noticing, you aren't learning.
Okay, we've warned them, now let's challenge them. The source ends with a very specific 30-day research-proven fluency challenge.
This is the call to action. This is where you put it all into practice. Pick 5 core techniques we recommend: input, output, shadowing, spaced repetition, and sleep. Commit to doing them every day for 30 days.
And track it. Put a big X on the calendar every day you complete it.
And here's the most important part, the assessment. On day 1, record yourself speaking for 2 minutes. Pick a prompt. Why I want to learn English. Save the audio file. And do not listen to it.
You have to bury it.
Bury it. Lock it away. Then do the work for 30 days. On day 30, you record a new file on the exact same prompt. Then, and only then, you listen to them back to back.
The source says the difference is usually shocking.
It's undeniable. You will hear less hesitation, you will hear clearer vowels, you will hear a faster, more natural rhythm. And that moment, when you hear your own objective improvement, that is the moment the language gene myth dies forever. You realize, oh, it was just a process. It was a system.
It changes everything. It moves you from just hoping you'll get better to being confident that you will.
Exactly. It's empowering.
So let's wrap this up. We started with that feeling of freezing in the meeting, the shame, the silence.
And we hope we've shown you that the way out of that room isn't about being smarter or more talented. It's about being more strategic. It's about leveraging the actual biology of how your brain forms memories, how it processes sound, and how it builds skills.
Spaced repetition is your memory hack. Comprehensible input is your fuel. Shadowing is your gym.
And sleep is your save button.
And consistency is the key that turns the whole engine on.
It is.
I want to leave you with one final thought from the source that I found really powerful. We spent a lot of time talking about things like sleep and emotion and storytelling. These are things that traditional education usually ignores completely. We think learning is about staring at a book in a quiet room.
The research suggests that our non-academic life, how we sleep, how we feel, how we imagine, is actually the foundation of our high performance. If you are neglecting your sleep in order to study grammar for an extra hour, you are actively fighting your own biology. You're working against yourself.
So maybe the secret to fluency isn't just in the textbook. Maybe it's in the nap you take after you finish a chapter.
It very well might be.
Something to think about. Try the nervous elephant visualization tonight. Seriously, see if it's still there in your mind in the morning. Thank you for diving deep with us into the science of fluency. Now go do the work. We'll see you next time.